Xno here, and today we got the Heizou guide for you. I am having so much fun with this character, and yes, it's not a waifu. What is happening? Xno, you have changed. We don't know you anymore. This is not the Xno we came to know and love. Look, I like this character. He's so much fun. I got him to C6 immediately because I wanted to get more damage for my one punch. Basically, Heizou is a beefed up Sucrose in my opinion. Although he does not have the CC of Sucrose, he only has a little bit of a pull and then no more CC. But what makes him fun is that his damage is really high, like his base damage really high. But of course, since he is Animo, you can't really scale that damage too high like you can do with other elements. But he's still fun. With Heizou, basically, you're looking to do a lot of damage with his Heartstopper Strike, which is this one. So as you can see, it takes a long time to charge that up, so it's not really viable for you to try and do that unless you want to do a cool pose while fighting, which is sick. I will admit, it's super sick. But what you will be looking for is this talent right here, which is when he activates a swirl reaction, he will be able to gain 1 stack for his elemental skill. And this can be triggered every 0.1 seconds. However, because there is an internal cooldown, you won't be able to get 4 stacks immediately with your normal attacks when you're doing a lot of normal attacks. But his charge attacks does not have an internal cooldown when activating swirls. You can do a charge attack spam and you'll be able to get lots of stacks immediately. So if you're doing that properly, rotating your characters properly, you won't be needing to hold that punch in place just to get the maximum damage out of it. Another thing that can help, if you would like to pull, you could get the C1. C1 will give you already 1 stack for his elemental skill whenever you switch him in. So you now only have to gain 3 stacks from swirls. So this is the damage on a no stack elemental skill. We're doing 21k, but if you charge it up,
bring it on.
It's doing 62k. So that is almost twice the damage. So you always want to have the max stacks whenever you do your elemental skill.
Here comes the cash. Eyes on me.
And there you go. That is almost an instant. You don't have to hold your elemental skill all the time, right? As long as you're using your supports properly. There you go, instant again. So that's how you mostly want to play Heizou, is working on the elemental reactions and generating stacks as fast as possible so that you don't have to sit in place and hold it like this. Now let's talk about his kit very briefly. You've seen most of it already. His burst is just a small kick, a small CC, and then an explosion. There's not a lot of CC to it. You don't really use Heizou for CC. If you need CC, you use other animal characters. His burst also does not do a lot of damage. Most of his damage comes from his skill. His normal attacks as well don't do a lot of damage, but it does help a lot when you level it up because you're going to be doing normal attacks and charge attacks anyway with Heizou. So the priority for leveling up his talents, regardless of your build, is elemental skill first, then normal attacks, then burst. So for the artifacts, obviously for an animal character, you're going to be running a 4-piece Viridescent Venerer. Now this is more for the Taser comp, where you would be pairing him with Electro Charge team comp. You got Hydro characters and Electro characters in the team. And then you want to build him with the triple elemental mastery. Basically how you would build Sucrose. EM, 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 and a 4-piece Viridescent, whatever. If you want to maximize the damage with his elemental skill, which is what I like to do as well, you might want to try running him with a 2-piece VV and a 2-piece attack percent bonus like Shimenawa or Gladiator. But even if you want to run the highest damage elemental skill build that you want to do, you can still run the 4-piece VV, but instead of having triple EM, you go with the classic DPS style. So attack percent, animo damage bonus percent, and crit rate or crit damage. So either way is fine. The increase in swirl damage and the decrease in elemental resistance of enemies is still a big deal, even if you lose a little bit of damage from your elemental skill. For the weapons, first let's cover the 5 stars real quick. So there's 3 I recommend, which is the Skyward Atlas, the Lost Prayer to Sacred Winds, and the Memory of Dust. However, the most recommended in my opinion is Skyward Atlas because it's just more attack and more elemental damage outright. With Memory of Dust, it has way too much attack buff and it falls off when you start using him with attack buffers like Bennett. And for Lost Prayer to Sacred Winds, when you switch out, you lose the stacks. And that's a huge problem for Heizou because tend to switch him out a lot because you want to swirl the elemental skills and elemental burst of your teammates. So a very reliable 5-star is the Skyward Atlas. Now for the 4-star options, Solar Pearl, Dodoko Tails, Sacrificial Fragments, and Witsith are all good options. Witsith would be the most powerful one out of these 4 stars. However, it has that RNG component that is very annoying. Sometimes you're not gonna get the buff, but by itself it has a good crit damage stat. But for the most reliable option for 4-star, I would recommend the Solar Pearl. You don't have to think about RNG, and you just get more damage from your normal attacks and your elemental skill and elemental burst. However, if you're not spending for the battle pass, then you can also run Dodoko Tails or Sacrificial Fragments. Sacrificial Fragments is more recommended for the Taser comp because you got the elemental mastery stat, so this benefits even more for the Taser comp. And you can also do your elemental skill more often if you have the Sacrificial Fragments. So with Dodoko Tails, this is your option if you're not running the Taser comp and you don't have Solar Pearl. This is also very good. There is one final option if you didn't get Dodoko Tails from the event last year, and that is the Eye of Perception. This is fine, but the other options are better. For constellations, they're very straightforward. C1 gives you 1 stack for his elemental skill every time you switch Heizou in, and you also get a really nice 15% normal attack speed. C2 doesn't really matter that much because his burst, you're not really using it for CC. It's not really that important. Let's keep it simple. Alright, for C4, you get a little bit of energy. It's not really a huge deal. It doesn't give you more damage or anything. And it's a little bit of a buff for the burst, which again, this character, we're focusing on the elemental skill, not the burst. C6 is really nice. It is now again about the elemental skill. So as you can see, when you have complete stacks of Heartstopper Strike, which is the elemental skill, it will deal 32% more crit damage, and it will also have increased crit rate by 4% per stack, so that's 12% increased crit rate at maximum stacks. So if you are building for big elemental skill damage and you have the Primo Gems, you can try to go for a C6 Heizou, but do be careful. Sometimes pulling for 4-star characters, especially when you're aiming for C6, can turn out not very well. It could end up being like 100k Primo Gems spent like my Rosaria, if you guys remember. So that might happen. Just be prepared to not get the C6 Heizou, and you know, maybe get him in the future. If you'll be playing Genshin Impact, you're gonna be playing it for a long time, you'll get constellations down the line. Don't worry about it. For the team comps, this is the Taser comp. I'm running a 2 Electro characters and 1 Hydro character. If you don't have Yelan, of course, the F2P option is the Husbando version. The less hot version of Yelan is the Singcho with Beidou and Kukishinobu. You can also replace Kukishinobu with Fischl if you don't have Kukishinobu. However, you won't have a healer in the team. I opted to replace Fischl with Kukishinobu so that I have some healing, and this is where Kukishinobu finally gets some value. If you need an Electro healer, there you go. You could also go with Fischl and Kukishinobu, it's up to you, but for me, I like running Beidou because her burst deals a lot of damage when there's more than 1 enemy on the field, and I like the counter mechanic. The other team comp that you would run, just like with Sucrose, is the Xiangling, Bennett, and Yelan, which they call the national team. Without Yelan, you can use Singcho, and with this team comp, you don't necessarily need to build a triple EM. You could go with the normal DPS build. So that is Heizou. He's very straightforward. Basically, what you know about Sucrose mostly applies to him. He's also super fun to play, and he's the first Husbando that I really like using as a main DPS. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and you can also join our Discord community. We have over 13,000 people in there. You can talk about Genshin or anime games, gacha games in general. Check it out, discord.gg/xfam, and I'll see you around. GG easy. Oh wait. Holy crap.